Welcome to the Kiran Show. I hope you guys have been keeping well and keeping safe. Now, every week ਅਸੀਂ ਕੋਈ ਨਾ ਕੋਈ topic ਲੈ ਕੇ ਆਈਦਾ and I feel like a topic, that is so close to our hearts, we never get a chance to talk about it because it's such a taboo topic. Why not bring this topic up that could help so many people out there and so many people that don't even want to talk about it and they feel shy to talk about it. But it's good to bring things up because we feel on the Kiran Rai show, the show is here to help you to live a happy and healthier life and to inspire you one way or another. So today's topic, we are talking about women and their health, and we're talking about women and their fertility. So we have got a beautiful, beautiful doctor to join us on the show today. Dr. Pavan, thank you so much for actually joining us. We're so excited to have you. How are you? Are you okay?
I'm really well, thank you. How are you?
Yes, good, thank you. So, talk to us about, well, let's start off with what your role is and, what you kind of do and how you help people in your day-to-day role.
Yeah, so I'm a registrar in obstetrics and gynecology, which encompasses women's health and all elements of women's health from problems with periods, fertility issues, pregnancy-related issues, menopause, and just a really wide range of women's health issues. So I review women in clinics who may come in with these issues and help them to manage things.
And do you find that when you have, especially women from the Indian community, looking on their to have to get any help or anything like that, do you find a lot of people, especially from our community, are very shy to openly talk about, any issues that they're actually having in their lives or any struggles they're having in their lives?
Yeah, so I think from what I've noticed, and even from sort of speaking to people in my own family, as you say, because women's health topics can be considered so taboo, I think there is a real reluctance not only to speak about issues, but also to seek timely intervention and help when people are struggling. So I definitely do see that, yeah.
In our community, we get a lot of people in our communities, they may feel embarrassed to talk about it or may feel ashamed to discuss about it. Many people with this topic, just because they don't feel so comfortable talking about it because it's a topic, that's almost seen as taboo because it's about women and their fertility. And when we do take, when we talk about this topic in general, you know, tell us about, how we can help people. Is there help out there if they're going through problems and stuff like that? Is there help? Can they actually go get the help that they actually need?
Yes, I think the initial thing is to recognize that there's an issue that you want to seek help about, if there is. And then it's also then going to your GP to see how they can help you, and that will often involve them asking lots of questions. Some of them might seem like quite personal questions, but they're sort of a standard group of questions that we ask, especially when we're sort of dealing with fertility issues. So things like how long you've been trying to get pregnant for, if you have any underlying health problems, and then just really exploring like things like your menstrual health and periods in more detail, and sort of trying to get down to the bottom of what might be causing an issue if there is one. And then they often refer you for further tests and investigations, such as blood tests, depending on what you present with. And eventually you may need to be seen by a fertility specialist, but actually quite often before you need to see a fertility specialist, there's lots of things that the GP can help you with, and most people get pregnant just with simple advice.
Actually struggle to conceive. And when that happens, why is that? Is there so many reasons behind that they can't conceive? Because some people kind of look at even in our community that have that old mentality of thinking, oh, it's just my bad luck, or if I have busy remedies and it will help, but it doesn't help or anything. Why do they have these problems of conceiving?
So it's really interesting how you explain that, because I think that is probably the primary issue, that
Mm,
problems getting pregnant is always associated or often associated with being the woman's problem. It's just my bad luck,
mm,
um, something wrong with me. When actually there's a man and a woman that's involved in that process, and actually up to
mm,
40% of fertility issues involve a male factor. So it's not always a problem with the woman, or, often it's multifactorial. It's something to do maybe with the woman's health and also with the male factors as well. So, looking specifically just at women's health problems that could cause fertility issues, we know that conditions such as endometriosis, which is when tissue that's usually found in the lining of the womb is found elsewhere in the pelvis. So it might be found on the ovaries or on the side
mm,
walls of the inside of your lower tummy. With that condition, for example, when you have a period and you bleed every month, those deposits inside your tummy also bleed over time. They cause bands of tissue to
mm,
form, which we call adhesions, and then those can interfere with the normal functioning of the fallopian tubes, which serve a really important function of collecting an egg when it's released from the ovary. So that's one
mm,
condition. There can be other issues related to actually releasing an egg, and those
mm.
count for 30% of cases, and that's conditions such as polycystic ovary syndrome. So there's a whole range of things that could cause fertility issues, and also, as I mentioned, there's male factor, which could be genetic problems. It could be a problem with sperm counts, etc. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I feel like with our community, we get that, like you said, you touch base on it, but we get a lot of it in our community where people say, oh, equally default, yeah, she's not. And a lot of our Indian culture put pressure on the women, don't they, to say, oh, why is she not getting pregnant, or there must be something wrong with her, or people kind of have this perception, don't they, that it's always the woman's problem. If she can't get pregnant, then it's her problem. But actually, they don't really think about the other factors, do they? Do you get women coming to you like that?
Definitely. And I think that there's also, it's really important to also acknowledge that some people don't want to get pregnant. So you can't just
Mm,
assume just because someone, is in a relationship and married, the next step is for them to have children. They may not want to, they may not be ready. And by continually probing them, you're not really approaching it in the right way. I think
mm,
fertility, getting pregnant, it's always such an individual choice, and it's also a very sensitive topic, and it should always be approached sensitively. You don't know what that couple's going through. They may not be ready to have a baby yet. They may not want to have a baby. They may have gone through baby loss and had a miscarriage, for example, that they don't really want to talk about. Or they may be having fertility issues, and by continually probing them, it's not helping the situation. And I
mm.
think as a community, that's something that we really need to change. Our thought process and how we probe and ask these questions really does need to change, because it's sort of inappropriate, really.
I agree with that, and we see it often, don't we, in families where someone's having like a fertility problem or anything like that, but you get it from society, you get it from parents, people start asking questions, and the individual, who's especially the woman that's going through it, and she doesn't want to conceive, for example, she's got her own valid reasons why she doesn't want to do it at the time, or they may not be ready, but she feels that pressure, that pressure's adding on and adding on. And sometimes I feel like, with the society itself and, a family in general, when they're doing that, it starts to break a woman's confidence down, doesn't it? Because, or even if she's trying and she's failing, and other people putting pressure on, it really does affect their mental health as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it really can, because, as I say, you don't know what they're going through already, and to add to
Mm,
that, burden that they're already carrying, it's unfair. And also, it can really affect men's mental health as well, because if a couple is primarily subfertile because a male factor um
mm,
contributing to that, then everyone's just assuming it's the woman. It's making it even more taboo for men to speak up about issues that they may have with fertility. So I think we're closing
mm,
lots of doors by being really probing. Often it comes from a really good place. So I'm not taking away from that. I'm not saying it. People are saying it to be horrible, or to make people feel uncomfortable. But I'm just saying that you just need to take a step back. if someone wants to
Mm.
talk to you about their fertility and you want to listen and be there with open ears, then that's great. But if you're
Mm.
asking those questions repeatedly, then you may just want to take a step back and think about, actually, am I asking the wrong questions?
Mm.
Is this appropriate, or do I need to just take a step back and just let this person know, if you ever want to talk, I'm here, let me know and we can
Mm.
chat if there's anything you ever want to talk about. That's probably going to be more helpful than repeatedly asking, like, you're not going to have a baby yet,
Yeah.
why haven't you had a baby yet?
Yeah. And do you think because of everything and with the way society is, do you think people feel almost embarrassed to like come and get help or kind of talk about it? Not just generally even women, but even guys like that probably know that they're struggling, and it's not the woman, it's actually the guy that's struggling. Like we just discussed earlier. Do you think it's a struggle for them to kind of come to that point and say, actually, I need help, or actually, they feel embarrassed? Why is that?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. By the time I see them in a clinic sort of setting along with my
Mm.
consultant, then they've already taken those initial steps and they've got over
Mm.
whatever they were, going through to get to that point. Um, but I think that you've sort of already touched on it, but I think it's that stigma, it's that, fertility issues are taboo topics, women's health, mental health, it's all sort of taboo topics that no one really
Mm.
wants to talk about. People feel uncomfortable talking about, so they rather wouldn't. But I think that there's lots of couples out there that are probably missing out on timely investigations and interventions. So, if we think about, for example, IVF treatment in the UK, it does depend a little bit on which area you live in as to what the upper age limit is on being eligible for IVF, which is NHS funded. So, if you've been trying to conceive and trying to get pregnant for 10 years, for example, but by the time
Mm.
you've gone and seen a doctor, you're now, 38, for example, in some areas you would have missed that NHS funding, whereas in some
Mm.
other areas the funding goes up to age 42. In some areas it's up to 35, 36. It varies according to area you're in, and that's really sad because it's expensive if you want to go privately
Mm.
for fertility treatment. Um, so that's why I always say that if you're trying to get pregnant and you or your partner doesn't have any underlying health conditions at all, and you've been trying to get pregnant for a year, and that means having regular intercourse and 2 to 3 times a week, and you still haven't got pregnant after that year, then you should go and see your GP at that point so that they can arrange further investigations and so that they can refer you
Mm.
on to a fertility clinic so they can explore further as to what might be the cause of it and then offer you the appropriate management for you. Whereas if you know you have an underlying health condition, for example, if you know you have endometriosis or if you are having very irregular periods, for example,
Mm.
then you're having regular intercourse trying to get pregnant, then after 6 months of trying, you should really see your GP because they can do those investigations earlier and refer you to a specialist sooner, because there may
Mm.
be something that needs to be done and that can be done quite easily to improve things for you.
And touching on base of what we were saying about NHS and IVF treatment, correct me if I'm wrong, is there a certain age cap to when a person, they have to be at a certain age or something before they can apply to have that, and if there's is there a certain cap of, if they're over this age they can't actually have that IVF because it's under the NHS?
Yeah, so that's what I was saying. It depends on what area you live in and what the funding is in that local area.
Mm.
So I can't just give a number, unfortunately, because it does vary from area to area. But
Mm.
I think the lowest age limit is probably around 35. I don't know of it being
Mm.
under 35 in any areas, but I may be wrong. Certainly in the areas that I've worked in, it's been around 35. Um,
Mm.
so, so that's why it's important to seek help sooner rather than later, so you don't miss out. And also, there's lots of other eligibility criteria, like your body mass index, so your weight to height proportion needs to be
Mm.
um, within a strict range to meet NHS funded IVF and even private IVF. There's a certain BMI bracket that you have to be under. And
Mm.
so it might be that the intervention that you need is help with losing weight, and that can be really, really difficult for lots of people because,
Mm.
lots of people are actively trying to lose weight and struggling, but actually by seeking the help, your GP can put you in contact with a dietitian who can put a structured plan and diet together for you, and an exercise plan and things like that. So there is lots available. You just need to take those steps and seek the help
Mm.
because you're entitled to it, and there's nothing to feel embarrassed about. So many couples go through subfertility. It affects around 1 in 6 to 7 couples in the UK. So that's how common it
Mm.
is. But people out there might not be talking about their struggles, but many, many people are going through that. Most people get pregnant within a year of trying, so around 85%. And within 2 years, about 90% overall get pregnant. Only a small
Mm.
percentage need fertility treatment to assist them in getting pregnant. So seek the help, get the investigations if you need to, remain really positive because actually all the statistics are mainly in your favour,
Mm.
and don't feel embarrassed to seek that help that you're entitled to. And also, there's so many helpful information resources out there. The ones that I always recommend are nhs.uk. You can search there for almost any health condition and you'll get lots of information as well as links to support groups. The Royal College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists have patient information leaflets. The British Fertility Society have a patient information section as well. And then even on channels, social media channels like Instagram, which is where I am, I share lots of women's health information. And like my primary aim with my platform is to make the topics really easy to understand because I think sometimes
Mm.
when people talk about menstrual cycles and ovulation, you're like, what are they even talking about? What's a menstrual cycle? So I try to simplify it further. I talk about periods,
Mm.
ovulation problems. I talk about, releasing an egg from the ovary. So I think that those platforms are really important, and lots of doctors, such as, like me, are on social media really trying to educate people so that they better understand their bodies, but also
Mm.
realize that help is available and give them advice on when to seek help broadly. So although I can't offer personal medical advice, the information that I do provide and offer is generic, and you can usually, direct yourself on where to go next by looking at the information that's provided.
And looking at your social media, because I follow you on social media as well. I remember, when you first started, it was quite small and it's grown immensely, with the how, like you're putting those, I think, is it called Reels now? They used to be called TikToks. But with the
Yeah.
Reels you've been doing, it's fantastic because people don't, that's like the new way of engaging, isn't it, with the public. And a lot of people that feel like, they feel scared or come to you or come to anyone, they're kind of hidden behind hidden doors. They can actually cut and they can actually look at your reels and watch them. Like, okay, I've got an understanding. Oh, okay, this is this, and they will never know what it is. Um, but they will still kind of like watch your reels. And have you ever had anybody from social media come to you and ask you any questions or anything like that? Have you ever had an experience like that?
Yeah, I mean, lots of us doctors on social media regularly get people contacting us and, sending messages and asking for advice. And unfortunately, we're not able to give sort of personal medical advice from a medico-legal perspective. It's just not safe to, because you don't know a person's full medical background to be offering sort of personal advice. But lots of
Mm.
people do reach out, and really I direct them back to reels or posts that I've made because often the information is there for them to look at. And also, like for example, my social media account has grown a lot over the past
Mm.
few months, and the number of messages coming through means I can't answer every single one either, because you need to really do it as a full-time job, day and night, to be able to keep on top of it, which I'm obviously not able to do. But it's a great way of relaying really important health information to people, and that's what I love so much about sort of social media and what you can achieve by being on there. I have lots of
Mm.
people messaging, thank you so much, I watched that reel and that was really helpful. that's given me some really great insight, and now I understand this topic a bit better, and that makes me feel great, because that's what I want to do. I want to educate people, um, and make that information readily available so they know what to do next, rather than delay things. And that even comes back to, we were talking the other day, Kiran, on about so many topics being so taboo related to women's
Mm.
health. Even goes to the sort of older generations of them knowing that, actually, for example, if you have gone past the menopause, or you're in the menopause, then you shouldn't be getting periods and you shouldn't be getting any bleeding. So actually, if you are getting bleeding, it's not something that you should just think, oh, I think this happens to most people, so I don't need to worry about it, I'm sure it will stop, or I ate something that wasn't quite right and that's what's caused it. That isn't the case. You should always go and see your
Mm.
doctor if you need postmenopausal bleeding. And without us educating people, we can't break down these myths. And we'd
Yeah.
only be missing important things that could have been prevented.
I agree with you. And with, of course, with your reels, I one thing I really love, like they're always quite fun to watch. It's never boring. Like, when you sometimes you watch, but you go on social media and वही same चीज आई जाती है तो उसे देखी जाने, you're just flicking through your phone. Whereas with yours, you make them quite interactive. They have a lot of information on the bit. It's information that you can actually digest quite easily and quite quickly, which is really, really good. And like we were saying, that you've just touched base now with, obviously, with the older generation, it's is it a lot more harder for the older generation? Say if someone, because you do get people that have gone through divorces or anything like that, or they've got married at a later stage. If they have and they want children, is it a lot more harder for them to then conceive because of their age factor?
So age is definitely a factor that does affect our fertility, as women, and it's not something that we can change. Unfortunately, we are born with with the number of eggs that we're going to have,
Mm.
and when our fertility really peaks in our early to mid
Mm.
20s. But not many people nowadays are ready to have a baby at that point. There's often many other things that you want to achieve before you go down that road. But what we also know
Mm.
is that after the age of 35, our fertility and our egg reserve does start to decline at a more rapid rate. And then
Mm.
after 40, it sort of goes down even
Mm.
faster. So although it's not impossible by any means to get pregnant after 40, it is still possible. And what we know is,
Mm.
your chances do decrease. And then in those sort of over 40s, we also see a lot more miscarriage as well. It becomes more prevalent the older you get, over
Mm.
40. But yeah, if you're 35 and you're thinking that you want to get pregnant, at that point, I'm not trying to scare anyone to say that you need to do it now, because otherwise you're going to miss the boat. I'm not saying that by any means. After 35, many women get pregnant without any problems. But what I'm just trying to point out is that our fertility does decline. So if you're thinking about
Mm.
your overall picture of what you want to achieve, and whether you want to have children and how many children you might want to have, then I think that it's really important that we do educate people appropriately so that they do understand that. I mean, I did do a post about age and fertility a long time ago now. I think it's probably even a year ago. And off the back
Mm.
of that, the number of women who contacted me to say that, I wish I knew that when I was in my 30s, because I never knew that information. And now I'm, 40, and I'm struggling to get pregnant. Had I known that then, it may not have changed anything. I may not still have been ready until now, but at least I would have been aware, and I would have been able to make a more informed choice as to what I wanted to do and when I wanted to have children.
So with women like that, is there any help available? Like if they're struggling at that age, is there any help and support that they can actually get if they really want to conceive at that point and they're struggling?
Yeah, so I would always go back to that first point of, if you find yourself in that situation, then don't just write yourself off and think that's it. There's no help
Mm.
available for me and it's over for me. I would still
Mm.
say take those first steps, go and see your GP. If you're over 35, then you may want to see your GP sooner than a year after trying to conceive. Just wait a few months, maybe about 6 months, and if you haven't got pregnant, then
Mm.
go and see your GP, and then they can investigate that further for you and refer you on if necessary, and then they can talk about the management options and the treatment options available to you, because again, it very much depends on what the underlying cause is. It's not always because you're over a certain age that you're struggling to conceive. That may be one factor. There may also be other factors which we can help with.
And that brings us, towards the end of the actual show. Now, I hope you guys have been watching today's show and you've took something away from it. वैसे तो ਅਸੀਂ जब भी हर weekend हर week ਅਸੀਂ आइदा से कोई ना कोई topic जरूर लेके आइदा. But with these topics, they're important to talk about because, if we don't talk about it, then, many people that are watching, maybe you need the help but don't know where to go to. You may not feel, positive to talk about it. You may feel negative about it. You may not have the confidence. So bringing these sort of topics to actually पता नहीं केरी help हो जाती, like we say. But I hope you guys have taken something away from today's show. But फिक्र ना करियो, ਅਸੀਂ अगले हफ्ते डॉक्टर पवन ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਫੇਰ ਆਵਾਂਗੇ ਤਾਂ ਫੇਰ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ and ਇਹਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਹੋਰ ਚਰਚਾ ਹੋਏਗੀ. So for now, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਤੇ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ. How was that? That was actually really good. I really enjoyed